Welcome back to Barrel Banter.
Banter.
Thank you. Yeah, we are here. It is Will and Jared for you today. Unfortunately, Peyton can't make it to the pod. He's taking on some fatherly duties, and him and his kiddo are at the museum. So, love that for him. We're missing him. But we got an action packed podcast for you today. Will, I'd like to pass it over to you and see what you're drinking for the podcast today.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. So for today, since we'll be talking about a little bit of Australian Grand Prix, which by the way was a fantastic race, I
Spoiler
decided to
alert.
drink a fantastic whiskey because it was a fantastic race. We'll get into the details about that, obviously, and like you said, spoiler alert. Yeah, Brother Bear, how have you been? What have you been up to, man?
Will, I'm gonna call you out, bro. You didn't even say what whiskey you're drinking. You just said it's fantastic.
Oh, for real? Sorry, Seagull Rare.
Oh,
I
my
I
bad.
uh I missed that part. My bad.
It's all good. Will is drinking Eagle Rare. Good pick, bro. Yeah. So over here, I have a limited selection over here, but I'm working on it, and this one actually feels pretty fitting for the race we had today. It is a Method in Madness single grain Irish
Whoa.
whiskey, matured in bourbon barrels, finished in a virgin Spanish oak cask. But just the fact that it's got the
Whoa.
word madness in it is nice because it was a little bit of madness today in the race that we will definitely get into. And man, I'm itching to talk about it. But also, it's a good bottle to break out every now and then. And what happened today truly only happens every now and then. I don't have something that special and that rare for what we'll talk about hasn't happened in 2 years, but alas, I'm at least off the bullet bourbon because the rinse and repeat is over. So that's what I'm drinking. I'm excited for us. I'm glad we got some good pours. So cheers to you, bro. But yeah, should we
Cheers
jump
to
right into
you.
the Australian Grand Prix?
I think we should.
So did
Absolutely.
you stay up late your time to watch it in America, or did you
No.
see it the next day in the morning?
Yeah,
Okay.
the latter for sure.
Okay. So how was it?
Oh man, it was fantastic. Now when I say fantastic, this I'll preface this. This is due to, I would say, uh my favorite team. Jared's favorite team doing really well. Due to some really good circumstances that fell their way. But I thought the race was. I thought it was action packed. The biggest story I'll just open it up with was Mr. Max Verstappen. Was it lap three, breaks, go on fire, and is out of the race. Holy smokes. Carlos
Hmm.
Sainz just passed him. Then, boom, we got an explosion of fire and brakes going everywhere. It's crazy.
No, that absolutely was incredible. So for me, the race was at 4 a.m. and I was not going to wake up that early, but I got up at 7 and laying in bed, turned it on. And let me tell you, when Max Verstappen has some engine problems, you perk up and you're like, oh, I'm awake. uh,
Absolutely.
to be honest, I'm still not 100% certain what happened, but I think it was a brake issue truly that his right rear seized up. And that's what was causing
Yeah.
him even to have troubles where Carlos got around him. But it was insane to see that clip of him pulling into the pits. And when he hit the brake in the pit lane to slow down, the whole right rear just exploded and carbon was going
Dude.
everywhere. And it was
Yes.
kind of odd. Like I was listening, the commentators were like, I don't really know if it's a good idea to bring a car on fire into the pit lane with so many people.
Honestly, though.
But
Oh, dude, it was crazy. Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely
Sorry.
no, that was definitely a moment, and that's why it goes with the madness of the bourbon I'm drinking here. But what I thought was, or sorry, not bourbon, Irish whiskey. But what's crazy about it truly is that Max has not DNF'd in two
Hmm.
years, and his last DNF was Australia 2022, which, if I'm not
Crazy.
mistaken, Will, I kind of vividly remember watching with you at your place in Austin,
Mm.
and we were like overjoyed to the moon because I think that was Red Bull's double DNF day, if you remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yes, it was indeed. Yes. Good memory.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I mean,
honestly forgot. Now that you mention it, I'm like, holy smokes.
it's like my last happy memory in F1. So I kid, I
For
kid,
real
I kid.
though.
But yeah, talk about this mysterious team you haven't named yet that we both enjoy and did well.
Well, they've been on the up really since midway last season.
Mhm.
But for you listeners out there, if you were following us back in the old days, the OG, early releases of the podcast, you'll know that McLaren is our preferred
Boop, boop.
team to support. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we're fans of basically every team, every driver, except like a select few. But we can appreciate Red Bull for the dominance and all that. But
Yeah, yeah,
McLaren is our preference. So, but they did
yeah.
fantastic. Now I have some stuff to go over with them. I've got some questions,
Okay.
some calls that they made that I don't know how I feel. But let me also just say, this is stepping away from this line of thought, but my predictions from last week on this Grand Prix were like perfect until Q end of Q1. So um, that's okay. But Danny Ricciardo did not finish at the top. Piastri was really close to P2. He was a couple of spots off, and I can't remember if I had Lando in P3, but that was on point.
Mm. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even remember what I predicted. This is pretty embarrassing as somebody who's supposed to be a podcaster and on this stuff. But I do remember you saying a double Aussie podium, and for a while I really thought Piastri had a shot at it. Eventually, I believe they swapped the McLarens because Lando had better pace, and I think they had. I don't know what it was for sure. If you might have some insight on this, but I know that Oscar got favored on pit strategy both times. The first time was just kind of the way it went. The second time, I think they wanted to favor Lando, but got caught out and
Yeah.
had to favor Oscar again. So maybe they gave the position back just to give him that nudge. But yeah, by the end of it, it was Lando on the podium. I think deserving as well. It was a good drive. McLarens were quick. So
Mm,
it is definitely encouraging to see those results they got as number 3 and number 4. Um, but
mm-hmm.
the team they were behind that we all assumed would be Red Bull in our normal, just everyday run of the mill Formula One for the past 2 years. It was a Ferrari one too, and that's a good thing to see. I'm not gonna lie, I'm into it.
Dude, it was. And Carlos Sainz, by the way, who won this race, drove fantastic. I mean, didn't have like he made zero mistakes. The man overtook Max on the first lap, and never gave it back. He just flawless with his driving. He always had a cushion. He made sure he had a cushion at all times. Which I guess there at the end, his tires finally started to die off, but it was still no problem. But it was good to see the Ferraris. I mean, they definitely have a competitive car this year. Is it the same standard as Red Bull? You know, that's maybe not. But Max Verstappen is just a fantastic driver, and he just makes that Red Bull 10 times better. Because you see Perez today was way off the mark, and
Hmm.
so I don't know. I'm excited for Ferrari. I think this is a great result. Obviously, 1-2. You can't get any better than that. And Carlos drove well, which I have so much to talk about with that because all I can think about is like, all right, Carlos, great race, good job. Where are you gonna drive next year?
Right, so true. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a heck of a job interview as well. Like I think we said it before, it's not that he needs to, but truly F1 does have short term memory, and it's really mostly about how you perform in your last couple of races. And Carlos Sainz is going out there and proving the point that he deserves a top seat. I think I'm less and less convinced that he'll take the gap year of just driving for Kick Sauber, waiting for Audi, and might go to maybe it is Mercedes. Maybe
Right.
I don't know. So another I don't know. It's Red Bull. Maybe Sergio's out. Another top team to try to be super competitive. But um, I mean, this drive was excellent. On top of the fact that the man just got his appendix taken out a couple weeks prior,
Right.
and who I mean, I
Yes.
highly doubt is fully healed. I heard that he had to get a different kind of seat and straps, like not the traditional straps. They had to kind of adjust them a little bit differently and rearrange his pedals as well. I
Oh,
think because he was sitting a bit differently to make sure he's the most comfortable. But the fact that he pulled that out, I mean, absolutely incredible. Kudos to him. So I don't think I could do it.
yeah.
These people are a different
No,
breed.
yeah, yeah. He's a super athlete at this
Hmm.
point. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is mega impressive what he did, and yeah, that turnaround was incredible.
Hmm.
But yeah, what a drive. I really thought he was quick, even in qualifying. But I really thought Charles would give him more of a run for his money. But he kept Charles at bay at least 3 to 4 seconds behind the
Hmm.
the whole time. It was crazy.
Absolutely, it was a clean race from both of them. So yeah, good on Ferrari. Their strategy played off. I think they played well with each other. It was excellent. So, but real quick before
Yeah.
we go and talk about a couple other things in this race that I'm itching to chat about, I do have a clip from our third host who's not here today, as
Uh,
mentioned, Peyton, and I'm gonna play it now. I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I do think it'll fit in here. So if he says anything bad, it's not my fault. It's Peyton's fault. So you ready, bro?
yeah, for sure.
Carlos freaking Sainz, boys. That was an incredible drive. I don't know how he did that. Like, not having any time to, train or anything. That was awesome. That was beautiful seeing Max have a problem. And, you know, Carlos was taking it to him before he started smoking. Obviously, he passed him too, but I genuinely think, like, if Max would have stayed in, we would have had, like, a early 2022 Bahrain, of Max and Charles going at it. Like, I don't know if Carlos still would have won, but it would have been the most entertaining fight we've had with Max since, 2 years ago. So that was awesome. McLaren's looked sharp. Mercedes is a team in shambles. Sergio Perez is Sergio Perez. And Daniel Ricciardo can't catch a break. So there we go. There's a lot more, but that's the main highlights, boys. Carlos freaking Sainz. What a race.
Oh yes, I love
Love
that.
it.
Thank you for the update, Peyton. Carlos freaking Signs is right. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad we could include that. So I'm glad to have Peyton in the
yeah,
mix here. Let's see.
yeah, absolutely.
One thing he talked about there, I know we kind of touched on him a little bit, but Sergio Perez, like this, he's had two good races. He's coming in second, doing a Red Bull 1-2, exactly what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But like
Mm-hmm.
this is the race. This is the time as a number two driver Red Bull that you're supposed to be winning this race. Max is
Yeah,
out, and you should be
absolutely.
winning. I mean, if not on the podium. And I know he had that grid penalty from impeding in qualifying, but still, like, you're in the Red Bull. You should
Yeah.
be taking it to the front. And part of me, should we be getting harsh on Sergio again and questioning his spot? Or is this really, truly a showing of, like, Ferrari and McLaren are just there now? And it's gonna be a more competitive season. What do you think on that?
Right. No, absolutely. And yeah, you hit all the points there. The reason that second seat for Red Bull is always going to be envisioned as of right. While they have this dominant car and Max, that second seat is that person's there to get P2, and if Max is not in the race, they're supposed to get P1. Like that's the expectation. So it. He did that the last two races, but this one he really. I don't know what's going on with him, but I'm sure they're starting to think like, all right, who else could maybe fill that role and that expectation. Which I mean, I don't know about you, but Carlos Sainz, man, I would be, I don't know if he wants to be the main man though, so we'll
No,
see. But
100%. I'm actually sitting here thinking the exact same thing. Like that's what I was about to say. The more I think about it, the more Carlos Sainz might make sense for Red Bull, where he can be an ultra competitive. Like he's getting the best out of the Ferrari right now, and he's being competitive. And he has Red Bull ties. He was on Toro Rosso with Max. They were teammates back in the day. His dad races
yeah,
Red Bull in rally or off something. But also like
right,
this could be a really good opportunity for Red Bull to swoop in, snatch Carlos, because let's be honest, like Danny Rick's not winning anybody over yet. Yuki Tsunoda
no,
has
yeah,
never really proved he's ready for that spot. Would they pull Liam Lawson straight up? Probably not. But like this could be a great opportunity to get signs, and then if he's super successful at Red Bull, convince him to stay there and not jump to this Audi project, and have
Right.
a really stacked 1-2 lineup for sure.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's just it. Like he's he's younger too. I mean, he's in his prime, and so you're gonna have Max and Carlos while they're in their prime, and you've got a dominant car, and more than likely they're gonna. I don't know if they'll ace the next regulations, but as long as they're competitive, then you have two of the top six drivers on the grid. Um, so yeah, I'll be curious to see how that ends up. But yeah, I would be shocked if they don't if they go for him. I would be. I mean, I think that might be the move, but anyways, like you were saying, going back to the Ferrari though, it really is competitive, which is exciting. It makes the rest of the season a little bit more interesting. We might see some more competition for that first spot as long as Max keeps DNFing.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the question on everybody's mind. Like, how would the race have turned out if Max was still in the race? Because there was talks about Red Bull saying Australia wouldn't be their most competitive race, but I
Right.
do I do think it still would have been competitive. Like, definitely, there's been some sparring, maybe going back for 1 and 2. I don't know how easily Max would have ran away with it. We may never know because, like, his brakes, he said from the start, were giving him issues. So we'll see. Suzuka should be good telling if Red Bull figures it all out and fixes everything, whatnot. But
Yeah.
to be honest, I think this could be a good segue that the problems that Red Bull has ahead of them are far less than another team that we like to talk about and enjoy in the Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team. Talk about a
Mm,
rough Australian Grand Prix.
rough, rough. Yeah. To be fair, Russell was driving. I think that car was about as good as he could. And it's that's where they kind of are in the pack right now. They're about fourth best, roughly. Fourth best team, and but yeah, you have engine failure for Lewis Hamilton, which was a sad sight to see. It was interesting, during the race. You see the two DNFs, and you're like, wow, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. The last
Mm-hmm.
time I saw that, they crashed into each
Mm-hmm.
other. So, it
Yep.
was pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, what happened to George Russell? That just is super unfortunate. But yeah, the dog days are here for Mercedes. They're really in it, and I feel bad for them.
No, it's actually kind of
But
like sad because the commentators are like every week looking saying Lewis's move to Ferrari is looking more and more like a good move for him because I mean even just from preseason testing the positivity that Mercedes had around them of finally having a package that they could get their heads around and understand how it works and how they can mess with it. And then there was, I think, something about like they went back to their old floor for this race and they feel like they're going backwards now. And Lewis said it's the least confident he's been with the car, and even though Lewis made some good moves at the beginning on the softs off the start, and Georgia made some moves, and they had like decent pace. They both came on the radio saying that other cars were just flying by them, and they felt slow. And I'm just like, when are they going to get it right? And I mean, look, this is going to be ridiculous, but like everybody thinks Mercedes is just going to bounce back because they're Mercedes, but like Williams hasn't bounced back in decades.
yeah,
So
dude,
is that their future now?
yes. Man, it crossed my mind honestly at the end of last season. Like, I will say, like, I didn't follow last season near as much as I normally do, watching races and everything. But yeah, you see the results, you see the trends going on. But I thought the same thing. Is like, at what point do you realize like they're not going to get back to the top anytime soon?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when do you? And I think the realization is, for every team, that they may not. No one's going to catch Red Bull in this regulation
Mm-hmm.
era, of this set. Maybe when the new one comes around, there'll be opportunity there. But yeah, I don't know, man. Mercedes is off the mark still, and um, I don't know. It is sad though, like you said, to see like. there was so much positivity, and now it's just been quashed, and it's sad. It's
Yeah.
just really sad.
I mean, they must be in their back of their minds just hoping and praying that these new regulations, which are rumored to be more engine dependent rather than ground effect, which like the hybrid era, turbo hybrid era, when it started, was an engine dependent, and Mercedes blew it out of the water. And then this ground effect aerodynamics era, Red Bull has like the best.
Yeah.
And then these new
Mm-hmm.
regs are supposed to go kind of back to that engine era. And Mercedes is a pretty good engine manufacturer, and Red Bull very much piecing together hodgepodge RB powertrain, Honda turning into Ford, and they still have some things to figure
Right.
out. So, I mean, in the back of their minds, they're probably hoping and praying, but like truly, this move to Ferrari with the way they look today,
Oh yeah.
that momentum and that kind of progress, Lewis and Leclerc are gonna hopefully do well next year.
Yeah, and dude, that and I'm just like, obviously hypothetical thinking here, but I'm just imagining Max, Carlos Sainz, Lewis, Charles Leclerc, like that could be a and also, I mean, you can't rule out the McLarens that you got two really strong drivers in Piastri and Norris, like that could be your top six every week, depending on just based on how their cars are performing at this point. But that could be really interesting and hopefully a lot more competitive, at least for the first place position. Speaking of first place position, as great of a beautiful drive this was for Carlos, I really was impressed and happy for him. Go him. But like when Max went out in DNF, I was like, "Ooh, we got ourselves a race for the first place." No, not even close. Which is fine. Like I said, beautiful drive by Carlos. But I was hoping for like, you know, lap by lap. Who's going to be first and who's going to catch it. No, none of that. So.
I do feel that is true. Like there, Carlos passed him, and that was the end of the race, right? Like he was in first for the rest of it.
Right.
But I think there was still enough buy-in that we got to appreciate somebody else commanding a
Oh
race.
yeah.
But I'm with you. I'm like, oh, like when's Leclerc gonna get in there, and are the Ferraris gonna like, are they gonna battle back and forth for the win because it's in sights, and who knows? Like, did Leclerc play team orders game and just secure a good 1-2, support Carlos in that? Did he even have the pace? Like, what was that there? But I mean, I was hope.
Right.
I think I'm with you. Like that could have been fun, but there was also a lot of other action on the track and stuff that they were showing that at least kept it interesting. And Lewis DNFing and things like that. Just like whoa, like stuff is going on and kept you kind of distracted. Will Albon get into the top 10? Like that's something we haven't even talked about yet. Where he took Logan Sargent's car on a gamble to get points
Oh
and
yeah.
didn't. But who did get points? A double points finish for Haas. Didn't have that on my bingo
What
card.
the?
So there was still some interesting storylines there. But I think one more topic to talk about on this race and we'll wrap it up. But let's talk about George Russell's last lap. How do you go from trying to get past Alonso to sideways in the middle of the track? That was crazy.
Oh, it was so sad to see because I think all of us got a little bit of love for Mr. George Russell. Like, solid driver. I think definitely earned his seat in that Mercedes and everything. But yeah, I don't know what happened there. I've watched the replay a couple times, and all I can think is just, the dirty air from Alonso's car must have done something to um his car that like made him slip and go into the gravel, which obviously then it's lost at that point. But I don't know, man. He was driving pretty great, following him, trying to get past him, but I don't know. Now here's a question for you. And this is something I don't know. I saw that Alonso got a penalty, but why?
I was about to say,
What
so
for?
funny you ask. The answer is kind of there. I actually read the post race report from Mercedes that talked about it a little bit, but also kind of read into what happened. But to put it plainly and quickly, Alonso brake checked Russell in that corner. And he
Ah,
said lap after lap in that same corner, he knew the rhythms of Alonso's braking and accelerations, and he got brake checked, which threw him off, got him into the gravel, I think, hit the wall, spun him, and then his tires broke off, and that's what got underneath him. ultimately,
Yeah.
like, George was okay, and it wasn't. I mean, it was a crazy crash, but um, yeah, Alonso brake checked him, so Alonso got penalized. It was a drive-through penalty, so that they put that after the race, which means he got a 20-second penalty, which then bumped Yuki Tsunoda up. So Yuki Tsunoda is putting RB on his back, and RB has launched up to 6 in the constructors, and then I think Haas behind them. So
Let's go.
that was that. But I mean, it is unfortunate, but it's like you're so close to the finish line, and now you
Oh.
have €1 million damage.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. You're looking at points now. $1 million down the drain out
well, I
of the
mean,
budget. Yeah,
Suzuka's
that.
2 weeks
Yeah.
away, but Mercedes has to send Lewis's power unit back and get it fixed, and they have to get George's car replaced. Like, that's a lot to do.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that factory will be working 24/7,
Mhm.
no question. Yeah, I'll be curious to see if they got it ready in time. I'm sure they'll fix, Lewis's car, the power unit. I'm sure that'll be fixed, but yeah, his car, I have no idea.
Like,
But that makes more sense.
yeah.
The brake check. What a guy.
Yeah, I'm confident Mercedes will have it fixed. Like, they probably have a spare, chassis and things like that, unlike Williams. But I think what really stinks for them is that they could use this 2 weeks to figure out why they're off the pace and how they can get more out of the car. And now they're just like repairing engines and diagnosing things and rebuilding cars. So
Right.
that's
Yeah,
unfortunate. But
unfortunate.
I did appreciate, I have to admit, like that they just finished the race under the VSC.
No questions asked.
Flashbacks from last year Australia, wow, it was fun. I'm like, Carlos Sainz, just get this win. You were kind of unfairly penalized last year. I'm sure he was freaking out. Like, he even asked on the radio, like, tell me we got the win. Tell me we got the win. Like, I don't
Yeah.
need this last lap restart sprint to the high heavens. Like, so
Right.
while it was kind of hilarious to see George Russell's car on its side completely blocking the track side to side, and the drivers had to like tiptoe around him, it
Yes.
was fair that they just finished
Right.
it. It's way too late in the game. Good place to end it.
Yeah. And it was just gonna be such a mess trying to clean it up, and yeah, I agree. It was just that was the right way to go. Just the race is over. That's it.
Yeah.
You all finish where you're gonna finish. So, yeah, and yeah, I was thankful for that. FIA, that was a good move for them
Mm-hmm.
finally.
So,
um,
cheers
Now
to the
I got a
smooth
question for you.
operation.
True. Question for you, real quick. What are your thoughts on the Williams decision for Mr. Albon to be driving the Logan Sargent vehicle? I've got my thoughts, but I would love to hear yours first.
Good question. I'm not gonna sit here and say I've completely collected my thoughts, but I think it was the correct decision in terms of a team game. I think there was no, like, the fair decision absolutely would be to give Logan the car, but then the team knew that Logan has not proven himself to be the person who could possibly get into the points. Now, some would say like that's unfair, but like Logan still has to show up and prove that he's that guy for them. But like you think about in other teams, and it's dependent. Like if we're talking championship battles and Max wrecks a car, like they're giving him Checos. But
Yeah.
I understand why Williams did it because these midfield and into the table teams, like every point counts. And I mean, I think about Yuki Tsunoda's 6 points he got today. That could be those 6 points from race 3 could be the ultimate difference 20 races later at the end of the season on them finishing 6th versus 9th. And that's like millions and millions of pounds of money. So is it going to be an absolute shot to the gonads for Logan Sargent? Absolutely. But hopefully it fires him up to
Yep.
prove that he's the guy. Hopefully it fires up Williams to say, we never want to be in this situation ever again. Let's get our production and our efficiencies together. And I mean, look, like hindsight's 2020. Alex didn't pull it off, but would Logan have either? No, but if Logan got the seat and he didn't pull it off, people would be saying, well, what if Alex was in the seat? So
Right.
it's a lose lose. Only a win if Alex really got the points and he didn't, and that's unfortunate. But I understand why James Vallis made the decision.
Right. And he's basically said how I felt. Like, at the end of the day, Alex is number one driver in that team. He's proven it year after year, race after race, especially compared to Logan. And no offense to Logan, this was their best chance of getting points for the race. Um, Now, I heard someone say, like, "Ah, it's just not fair." I'm like, well, if Formula One was fair, then
When
everyone would
has
have the
it been
same
fair?
car,
Yeah.
all in the same budget, so it's just not how it works,
Yeah.
and it was, I think, the right decision. But yeah, I mean, more than likely Logan would not have gotten points, and then the questions would be coming around like, why would you not give that to Alex and see what he could do? But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just sad. It sucks for Logan, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
No, you feel for the man, but I think it was Matt and Tommy said this in their qualifying recap. But hopefully he can take a positive perspective of this and understand that he's still in a Formula One seat. He has 21 races left, I think, and he still has time to go out there and prove himself and race. And so many people are just sitting there waiting for seats, and not even many people from F2 that are champions get a seat ever or get a second season as a seat. So hopefully he takes the opportunity to stay positive about it. I mean, it's got to be tough on his mental, but he's going to get the car back in Suzuka, and hopefully for the rest of the season, he goes out there and puts his foot down and gets some points.
Yeah, get some points. I agree. Um, so real quick, and I know we're trying to wrap up this real quick, but um, I would just like to say that I really wish they wouldn't have swapped Norris and Piastri with McLaren. I know he had the fresher tires, and they thought probably he would have a shot at Leclerc, but the man was on the podium, and it's his home race. You could have given it to him, but
There's never been an Australian on the podium in the Australian Grand Prix. And
really?
so I'm like,
Oh, that was their
that
opportunity.
could have been the
God.
opportunity, but I understand, like, at the end of the day, mementos and little feel goods isn't how Formula One operates, i.e., Alex Albon getting Logan's car.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I know.
So,
It's like when your heart wants something but your mind knows. Like, yeah, it's not a great idea. But yeah. Anyways, well, I thought in conclusion of the race, it was a good race. Lots of action, like you said. Did some good overtakes. Had some DNFs. Most notably, obviously, is Max. Great race for Ferrari, McLaren. And got Haas in the points. Go them. We'll see if they get points again anytime soon. Yeah, I'm excited for Suzuka and see how it goes, and hopefully we see another Max DNF.
let's go. Or just a competitive race. So,
Or just that, yeah.
that's the Australian Grand Prix done and dusted and wrapped. For the last little bit of our podcast, we'll keep it quick, but I like to do a little 5-minute rundown on the state of March Madness because it's delivering, it's doing what we expect it to do, upsets galore. So, Will, what's your highlights so far of the first round and games of March Madness?
Well, here, sir. My perfect bracket is not perfect anymore. It was busted. Literally, actually, no. I think the game that busted it for me was, I had South Carolina beating Oregon, and Oregon won. So that's unfortunate. I also had, this is the big upset of the first round that busted a lot of the brackets, was the Kentucky Wildcats losing to, I believe it was Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Oakland. And that has literally, it diminished the perfect brackets down to like, it was like 1,000 in ESPN, and then Yahoo only had like 100 left. And then I can't remember what game that busted the rest of them, but we are now down to 0 perfect brackets, which goes to show every year March Madness is pure chaos. It's just upsets, Cinderella stories. It's amazing. the biggest story so far has definitely been that Kentucky
Mm-hmm.
loss. There's a lot of questions surrounding the coach John Calipari. He hasn't made a deep run with Kentucky in a while now, and they're a stout program, but he's going to have to turn it around here soon. Also, good news for us, good old Ags, is UT lost to UT.
Sorry, so
I can't
you
remember.
meant if we as Texas A&M people would say is UT beat TU, as in the University of Tennessee beat
Beat
Texas,
TU.
which is
Yeah.
exactly what I was hoping for. I said, let's go Tennessee as my champs, and I'm excited to see you beat Texas.
Yes. And that was a good call. Yeah, and it was great. They bullied them out of the building. It was great. Good game by Tennessee. Our Aggies, Texas A&M University, did get the dub on round one. They've got number one seed Houston
Mm.
this evening. Let's see how it goes there. We did, we stood toe to toe last game with them during the regular
Yeah.
season. So you never know. It's March Madness, but we will need some good shooting. But other than that, going on a macro level with the March Madness. As far as you know upsets go and any other major news. I I'm trying to remember. I think there was one other upset that I can't remember, and I'm trying to pull it up. I can't
Well, let
see
me
it.
jump in if you
So
don't mind.
yeah,
One thing I did want to
go
bring
for
up
it.
is that another upset was Auburn basketball, who just won the SEC tournament, so they're SEC basketball champions, lost to Yale, um,
Oh yes.
and that that in itself is like an upset and kind of funny. But what I think has not been great about that, and then the Kentucky loss as well, and I think somebody else in the SEC might have lost. The SEC is not getting good results in basketball, and people are calling out the conference for not producing good results in basketball. Which, let's be honest, like, has the SEC ever really been a basketball conference outside of Kentucky? No,
No.
but Texas A&M is still in.
Yep.
Tennessee's there. Is Alabama in, or do they lose?
Alabama is still in. They play Grand
So
Canyon.
that, yeah, that might be the three to left. But either way, interesting. Checks around the SEC and their basketball prowess. But I saw
Yeah.
some, and this is just the message boards and things. But these OU and TU fans that are joining the SEC next year are saying that they're going to have to come in and save men's basketball in the SEC because we're bad. But boo them. I don't like them. So, but that's I do want to commend Texas A&M. They're calling it the Trev Alberts Bowl, the Trev Alberts tourney or whatever. Trev Alberts, the Nebraska Cornhuskers AD, as we mentioned last week, is now at Texas A&M. Men's and women's basketball played. Men's basketball took care of business. They played a competitive first half. Second half, though, A&M really took it away and ran away with it. Almost put up 100 points on the Cornhuskers and left the Cornhuskers completely winless in men's basketball tournament history. So that's great. Got that dub. Women's basketball, though, I'm not gonna
Hmm.
lie, their Nebraska had us going the whole game and was kind of crushing us. Our women though made a good comeback. We're within two, I think, in the last minute. Unfortunately, dropped the game and Nebraska beat us. But I'd say we're 1-1 in the Trev Alberts Bowl. Everybody got a win. Unfortunately, the Texas A&M women basketball team is not moving on, but men's is still there.
Yeah.
Like you say, we have Houston coming up in a few hours here. So best of luck to you, Ags. Gig 'em.
Real eggs, yeah, and to wrap it up, I would say, as this tournament progresses, I would say we've got a couple teams that are on that Cinderella story watch, and basically what I would say is keep an eye out for 12th seed Grand Canyon University, 13th seed Yale. They've got San Diego State coming up. James Madison, which by the way, they've had multiple Cinderella runs in the last decade. So they play Duke today. Sorry, no, tomorrow they play Duke, and so that's a team to be on the lookout for. NC State as well. They've made some They beat Tech and all that stuff. But anyways, it's gonna be an interesting rest of the tournament, and like you were saying, good job, men's basketball, Texas A&M team, and it's all right. Better luck next year for the women's team, but yeah, it's been fun, and I'm sure we'll see some more upsets and more craziness going on for March Madness. But yeah, I think that's about covers so far March Madness.
That's it. So I think that's all we got for y'all today. Thank you for listening. I hope y'all yourselves are enjoying some good pours of whiskey. Let us know what you're having. Yeah, and like, subscribe, comment, all the above. I know that's ridiculous to say, but follow us on Spotify. Give us
For
a
real.
rating. Thanks for listening. Peyton, we miss you. We'll get back the trio together soon. It will happen, I promise. But Will, why don't you take us home?
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you everybody for listening, and please like, subscribe, whatever you got to do to follow us and keep listening. But to close us out, this has been Will.
And this is Jared.
And this has been Barrel Banter.
Banter. You've just listened to an episode of Barrel Banter Podcast. Subscribe to the show so you'll be notified every time a new episode drops. Support the show by giving us a 5-star rating and sharing with your friends. Follow us on social media at Barrel Banter Podcast.